Can your divorce records be sealed? Hi, I'm Alicia Kinchlow, the owner of Kinchlow Law, a family law practice based out of the Philadelphia area. Now, sometimes, given the nature of divorce proceedings, we think about those types of records being automatically sealed or inaccessible to the public, and that is not necessarily the case. So, I want to take a step back here, and if you're new to these videos, I want to remind you that you should always speak with an attorney licensed in your area about the facts specific to your case. And you should be aware that the policies and rules regarding certain things vary between different states and sometimes can even vary between counties within a state. So it's very important that you speak to an attorney in your area about what's going on with your case. Now, when it comes to certain types of cases in the state of Pennsylvania, there is a public access policy. And I'm going to link in the show notes to Pennsylvania's public access policy. And that policy outlines what types of information needs to be withheld from certain types of documents. So generally, some of the things that are not public record are going to be some of the things that we would think about, right? So your social security numbers, financial instrument numbers, your bank account information, those types of things are going to be excluded from the public record. So if you do file something with those types of things on there, generally the court is going to ask you for a redacted version and an unredacted version because, of course, they still need to have that information. A lot of the times in divorce proceedings where there are minor children, usually they can be referred to by their initials. Sometimes their date of birth, their full date of birth will not appear on the documents. And again, sometimes depending on your county, the court may ask you to present those documents in both forms, a redacted form and an unredacted version. So you need to understand what the policy is and what you need to do to be in compliance with that policy. A lot of filings will also require you to certify that you have followed the public access policy. Again, I'm going to link to that in the show notes so you can take a look at that. Now, generally, we have open courts, and the idea is that the public should be allowed to understand what is going on, to read, to know what is happening in other cases. And that is a really huge public policy that cannot be easily overwritten out of respect for or out of a desire for someone to keep their personal information personal or private from the public. So sometimes I tell people to think about a situation where you may see a divorce complaint filed by a celebrity where it's very bare. There's not a lot of information as to what happened. You're going to see that they mutually consent to the divorce or something of that nature. Then there can also be kind of ugly, very detailed complaints for divorce, which outline everything. And part of that is strategy, understanding that those things can be made public and people actually care enough to go get them and actually see what they have written in them. Sometimes it's to be able to outline if you're filing under a fault ground. And in Pennsylvania, one of the grounds for divorce is mutual consent, but another one is that there's fault, maybe adultery, maybe some type of fraud. Those are things that can be alleged under a divorce complaint and that can be spelled out in the actual divorce complaint. What was the adultery? So those are things to consider. But again, someone can access those documents because they are open to the public. People should be able to review and scrutinize the information that is in there. Now, you can make a request, and the request has to be what we call narrowly tailored to only prevent the amount of information that is needed from being released to effect what you need to be held private without infringing upon the right of the public to have access to that information. So again, generally you're going to see situations like maybe proprietary information regarding a business or some type of other commercial aspect. And again, you're going to see information regarding social security numbers, bank accounts, things of that nature. But if you can show that there is a good reason to keep some of this information private, then the court may consider whether or not part of a document or all of a document should be placed under seal. Now, there are other ways to try to get to that information. We're not going to talk about that today, but one of those is FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. And I'm going to put a link to that in the below as well, so you guys can check that out at your leisure. But there are some other ways to try to get to some of that information. And the FOIA Act, so FOIA allows you to get to information that generally is not accessible generally by the public. And you would have to follow the guidelines regarding FOIA to make those types of requests. Now, again, you can make a petition to seal your documents, or generally what's more allowable is to seal or redact part of some of the information that is in your complaint or your records. Now, when it comes to the actual court proceedings, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of courts are actually open to the public. Just because people don't go into the courts or access it into the courts or into hearings, people don't think about them being open to the public, but a lot of the times they actually are. So you could request to go sit into a case or go expect to sit in and listen to a hearing. Now, the courts have held that certain types of hearings may not be accessible to the public because the information that's going to be overheard in those proceedings would generally be the type of information that would be protected. So, for example, an equitable distribution hearing may be a hearing that is not where people are not allowed to attend, because you're generally going to hear or may hear information regarding bank account numbers, social security numbers, tax information, so on and so forth, that would generally be covered by a seal. So it's important for you to understand that public policy, the idea that we should all be able to make sure that our laws are governed and holding everyone to the same standard, to be able to see how decisions are being made, is such a huge part of the way that our legal system works, that you have to be able to narrowly tailor a request, and you have to overcome that general right in order to be able to have your record sealed. It's not impossible. So I don't want to say that the way that I'm explaining it, that it is impossible for that to happen. It's not impossible. It happens. It happens enough that it can definitely be done. But you want to make sure that it's narrowly tailored. You want to speak to an attorney licensed in your area about the facts specific to your case and why you need to have part of your record or all of your records sealed from the public. All right, I hope this shed some light on how records can be sealed. Make sure that you hit subscribe, hit the little notification button, so whenever we drop a video, you get a little ring, and you can get another video on custody, divorce, and support. If there is a topic that you would like us to cover, if you have questions about today's video, please drop it in the comments. I love to hear from you. I always respond. But until next time, take care.